Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. Boss says I can't come in early to set up my cart. So I come in right at clock in. Coworker who leaves early gets mad at me. So this happened back in 2015 through 2016. I, now 28 female, was working as a phlebotomist in a local hospital and I worked first shift, which was about 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. I love to come in about 10 to 15 minutes early and just set up my cart. Nothing fancy, just metal wired shelving types, and we had our own personal phlebotomist trays that we put in the top section of the cart. I didn't always restock my tray before leaving my shift, so I typically come in early to organize it and get my metal cart ready. It usually took me maybe 5 minutes to put my tray on a cart and put the handful of tubes I needed back in place, then I'd spend the rest of my time waking up in the break room with coffee. Well, one woman, can't remember her age, who came into work a few months after I started and I had issues. I found her lazy and rude. Examples: she would come in and snap at people when they tried to help her. She would take a book with her during morning rush, which was 3a-6 divided by 7a, and sit on the floor to read and not come back to the lab to help after collecting her labs. She would hang out during the nurses' celebrations and not come back for hours at a time. She wouldn't clock in until the last second and then she'd clock out the earliest minute she could. When it was time to start the morning rush, she'd get mad if someone took the stack of labs she wanted and she'd go demanding them. She and I worked the same overnight shift, but I got tired of her attitude and switched shifts. Well, like I said, I like to come early and set up my cart before I clocked in. And she figured this out quickly, so she would try to hand me the stroke or trauma pager, something that needed to be handed to the next phlebotomist who was scheduled to take it that shift, but she'd try to give me hers even if I wasn't scheduled for that one, but I refused, saying I'm not clocked in yet. So, she just left it on my cart a few times without telling me, which led to it going off for a call to the ER and I had to clock in early, and when I saw her in the lab again, I told her to never do that again. The conversation got heated, which led to a meeting with me, the coworker, and our supervisor. Our supervisor took her side and said, just take it, and if it goes off, you clock in and then I will adjust the clock in on the computer, saying she'd shorten my time on the clock. So I said fine. I set my alarm for later in the mornings and I started coming in the last minute I could to clock in at 2:59 a.m. Yes, it made me start my rush a little later, but the look on my co-worker's face when she saw me later, right before she was to clock out, as she was trying to hand me a pager I wasn't scheduled to have and I already had the one I was supposed to, was priceless. She complained to the supervisor, who tried to talk to me, but I said, well, I'm not supposed to be here until 3, so that's when I get here and clock in now. I don't want my hours messed up. She didn't even try to argue. The co-worker was very upset. She even screamed through the lab, demanding someone take her pager so she could go home. It was still 20 minutes until her shift was done. Next story. I repeatedly tried telling the big box hardware store that the lawnmower waiting for pickup was not my lawnmower. But they wouldn't take no for an answer. So I think this falls into this category, but it all started with me purchasing a lawnmower at a big box hardware store. In the interest of keeping them anonymous, let's just call them Rob Lowe, or Lowe's for short. I walked in one day looking to finally purchase a new mower, and I was in luck as they had a smoking deal on a display model. Unprepared to be going home with a new mower the day I didn't bring my truck. So I simply asked if I could set it aside and come back in a little bit with my truck. I returned maybe 30 minutes later and picked up my mower and headed home. This should be the end of the story, but weirdly, it isn't. Fast forward about 2 weeks later and I get a call from Lowe's informing me that my mower is ready for pickup. Confused, I replied, pardon me? So they reminded me that I ordered a mower about 2 weeks ago and it just arrived and is awaiting pickup. Now I know most would have seized the opportunity right there, but I decided to be a good person and I explained to the employee that no, I didn't order a mower, I bought a floor model and set it aside to pick up later, which I did. The employee thanks me, apologizes for the confusion, and says he'll update the order. Welp, 1 week later they call again, same thing, and I once again explain why it's not mine. They did this once a week for 3 weeks straight, and after the third time I tell the wife I swear if they call me again I'm going to pick up my mower. At this point now I'm just excited, I'm watching my phone, hoping they'll call, because in my mind I've earned it at this point and I want my free mower. Well, lo and behold, week 4 hits and guess who calls? I am now ready to accept my free mower, but I'm also unsure how this is going to play out. I don't know if it's paid for, I don't have a receipt, it seems like a long shot. So I simply tell the employee, I'm so sorry, I haven't been in yet to get it, but I got called out of town for work and just got back, and with that said, I have no idea where I put the receipt. The employee kindly replies, oh, no worries. It's paid in full, so all you need is a photo ID matching the name on the order. Perfect. I call the wife to let her know I'm picking up our new mower. She just laughs, still positive that once I get there they won't have a mower to give me. But you'll be happy to know I pull in, tell customer service I'm here for my mower, show them my ID, and next thing you know some guy on a tow motor is loading a brand new, in the box, unassembled mower into the back of my truck and off I go. Still have that mower today. I thought about returning the original afterwards, but I just got nervous it would somehow raise the alarms. Then I was going to sell it on Marketplace, but shortly after all this I had bought a new house and my best friend put in a lot of hours helping me move, and he too had been looking for a new mower, so I just gave it to him instead as a thanks for helping me. I still ended up with a brand new mower for essentially 60% off, and then was also able to pay for movers with the original one, so it was still a win-win. I genuinely tried telling them it wasn't my mower, but they insisted it was, and it would be rude to refuse their offer. Next story. Don't want to speak to my female co-worker and would rather talk to a man? How about we don't? This was a few years ago when I was around 18. I worked at a large chain of automotive parts stores. The store had a roughly equal number of male and female staff, and being automotive, the women seemed to get a decent amount of men and other women who would ask for one of the boys to help them. I was out the back loading stock onto a trolley to run onto the floor when one of my female co-workers, mind you she's worked here for around 7 years at this point compared to my 3 months of employment, comes and finds me and asks me to help a customer. I ask why she needs help, because she usually knows more than I do considering how long she's been working here. She explained she was standing at the service desk and a guy came up and asked her to get one of the boys. She tried explaining to him that she is more than competent to help him, but he insisted that a man needs to help him. So after hearing this I decide F it, I may as well have some fun. I tell her to follow me back to the desk where he was and to just let me sort it out. I get to the customer and ask what he needed. He explained what he was after, so I kinda just stare with a puzzled look for a moment. Look at the customer and say, I'm sorry, I actually don't know how to help with that one, and turn to my coworker and say, actually, she's an expert in that field, she knows more about that than I do, I'm sure she can help you. He looks annoyed and asks for another one of the boys, and on cue one of my other male coworkers, who had overheard the entire conversation, walks over. The customer looks at him and asks for the same thing again, to which he replies, oh actually she's an expert on that, she's probably the best person to ask that question to, before wandering off again. The customer begrudgingly got her help on the matter and walked out without talking to anyone else in the store. Next story. You will come in when this warehouse opens. I used to work in a warehouse, and one day we got a new floor manager. He had this grand idea that he was going to make an already functional supply warehouse work even better. It is important to note that all of our deliveries were sent out on time, received on time, no workplace accidents other than the occasional stub toe or splinter from a wooden box. This place ran about as smoothly and efficient as possible, but it wasn't good enough for the new manager. He made it a point to check on everyone, getting into things that weren't his business and things he didn't know about. One of his biggest things was making sure that everyone was at work on time. We didn't have a time clock, we just wrote down when we got in and when we left. The new manager insisted that a punch card system would work much better for us, but the owners weren't willing to invest in that. So, new manager would spend every morning watching everyone come through the front door. We had maybe 50 people who worked there, so he made sure to count who came in and when. Anyone who walked in the door past 8:05 a.m. got written up. That is when he met the old guy. Old guy had been with the company pretty much since it opened. He knew everything and everyone there. Great guy, and everyone liked him. On the second or third day of new manager watching everyone come in, he sees old guy walking in the front doors at 8:15. New manager rips into old guy telling him that he was late, that it was unacceptable, and that he was getting written up. He is yelling in the middle of the warehouse where everyone can see and hear him. Old guy tries to explain, but gets told to shut up. New manager tops this all off with an order. This warehouse opens at 8 am sharp every day, 5 days a week. and I expect you at that door at 8 am to begin your shift. You will be here when the warehouse opens. Is that understood? Old guy just kinda smiles, takes the paperwork, and apologies, stating that he would be in tomorrow at 8 am just as he was told. The smug look on the new manager's face was picture perfect. He was certain that he had just fixed the biggest flaw in the company. The next day at 8 am sharp, old guy walked through the door and simply made sure that he was seen. Then he went off into the warehouse. That day was a nightmare. Orders were backed up. Trucks were waiting on paperwork. New manager is almost in tears because of the chaos. The owner comes in and starts trying to make sense of the situation with new manager, and they track the paperwork issue back to old guy. New manager is upset, but owner is concerned and asked old guy if everything is okay. Old guy just tries to hide his embarrassment, saying that new manager wrote him up the day before and he was told that he had to come in at 8 am. Not at 4 am like he always did, to get all the orders and paperwork ready for the day. The day before, when he walked in the door, he had been coming in from a break. New manager tried to backpedal, saying he didn't know that it was old guy's fault. Owner knew better. After that, the new manager wasn't working at the warehouse anymore, or for the company. He went off to become a new manager for someplace else. Thankfully, old guy knew what was going to happen and had most of the paperwork done for the day already, so we weren't too behind when the smoke cleared. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.